Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So a lot of people are fixated on the election issue right now. I guess there's not much more that I can say about it other than that let's hope justice prevails in whatever form that may take. Now, it's very important though that we keep our eye on other things as well. And something is going down in Denmark where they're culling 17 million mink because there's been some coronavirus mutation which is now spreading to humans, which basically disables the body's ability to create antibodies to fight off the virus or to resist the virus. Consider the lengths that the world has went to already to try to stop this thing. The majority of suspicious people are talking about how it's all about trying to control people, okay? And I've made arguments in the past that the juice ain't worth the squeeze in that regard because there's so many other ways that the technological system can control people nowadays with big tech, that it's really not necessary to get people social distancing and wearing masks. Maybe that's another brick in the wall of that whole plan, but regardless, I still don't think that that's the end goal. But I've always suspected that perhaps this is actually worse than we know. Now again, we don't know what the origins of this virus are. And I don't like to toot my horn at all, but my intuitions about how this has transpired from the start have been fairly accurate, okay? Everything that I intuitively come to based on applying common sense with logic tends to come into the mainstream, whether that's with regards to wearing masks or the fact that it's airborne or how it spreads, the mutation, would it become a pandemic in the first place? Okay, I've been fairly correct in my prognostications so far. And I'm really convinced now that this virus is scaring the shit out of the authorities because for whatever reason, maybe they know more about it than we do. But I mean, for one, to shut down the global economy in the first place is saying a lot. To this whole culling of the mink, 17 million mink, that's easily a $1 billion operation. It has to be. And I don't think they're going to be able to recover from that. I mean, how do you recover from that? You're losing hundreds of millions of dollars. But the problem with this virus is that it's already bounced in and out of species several times. Whereas, there might be strains of flu which go into a pig or a chicken or something like that, like we've seen with bird flu and swine flu, and then they come back and they infect humans. But I mean, that usually takes place over a long period of time. Whereas this virus, which has mutated within the minks, which is COVID-19, is already spread in humans. In Denmark, 5 people apparently have been diagnosed with it. Now, we need to remember that testing isn't 100% accurate, okay? And the whole idea of multiple strains hasn't really presented itself to the mainstream at all, okay? It was talked about briefly at the start, but it hasn't been talked about lately. And I get a sneaking suspicion that this virus is really bad in the sense that it's going to keep on, like it's zoonotic disease, obviously. And I'm not an infectious disease person, okay? Like I say, I just apply common sense when I see news stories like this and they're not getting a whole lot of attention. And these are from credible, well, semi-credible mainstream media outlets and alternative media outlets. It raises an eyebrow for me, okay? And I have a sneaking suspicion that this virus is going to be with us forever. I think that it's going to keep on jumping between species and it's going to keep doing strange things. And I mean, just think about the sophistication of a virus that has learned how to disable your ability to produce antibodies to protect yourself from it. Basically, that means that it's going to be endemic within people. And that would essentially mean that you would have it and you just wouldn't be able to get rid of it. Now, would it be something that lies dormant, like what's the cold sore virus? Is it herpes simplex? Would it be something like that where it lies dormant and it springs up at certain times in your life? Or is it going to be something like HIV, where it slowly wears away at the body over time? And it's only going to be, detectable at a certain point when it presents itself. What are the implications of this really? And why does it act in such mysterious ways? Like, why do some people, lose their sense of smell or sense of taste? Why does it attack certain organs in certain people? So I really think that this virus is worse. I know a lot of people think it's not a big deal. And I think, yeah, on the surface, in the short term, it's not a big deal. But I think it has the potential to be a very big problem down the road. I'm just going to read part of the story here. Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said Wednesday, the decision had been made with a heavy heart, but it was necessary by recommendation of health authorities. The mutated virus has spread to humans. The Danish authority based in Copenhagen, which deals with infectious diseases, has found 5 cases of the virus in mink farms and 12 examples in humans that showed reduced sensitivity to antibodies, allowing the virus to spread could potentially limit the effectiveness of vaccines. So that's the other thing. They're worried that the vaccines aren't going to work, or that you're not going to be able to have prophylactic measures, or preventative measures, I should say, to resist the virus. We have great responsibility to our own population, but with the mutation that has now been found, we have an even greater responsibility for the world as well. There are 15 million to 17 million mink in Denmark. Outbreaks of coronavirus at the country's mink farms have persisted despite repeated efforts to cull infectious animals since June. I mean, just the fact that this can go in and out of any species, whether it was the tiger or the dogs that are getting it, or just all these animals, it's just weird, okay? And it really reminds me of the movie 12 Monkeys, where the animals take over the earth and all the humans go extinct. I guess everybody would go extinct, but it's almost like a earth-killing virus. It's like a virus. It's a super virus because it can just infect everything. That's crazy. 1 million mink within a 5-mile radius of suspected or confirmed infection were destroyed in October. Denmark's police, army, and home guard will be deployed to speed up the culling process. Unfortunately, the residents of those municipalities have to prepare for further restrictions in the near future, he said. Here's another article just to alleviate some fears, okay? But is this latest twist of the COVID-19 saga reason to be deeply concerned? Several experts say probably not. Bergstrom and others argued that while the virus's penchant for infecting mink bears watching, it isn't likely to lead to a nightmare strain that is more effective in infecting people than the current virus. Okay, we know that these guys have been saying things all throughout this process, and a lot of them haven't really been too accurate. I don't believe that a strain which gets adopted to mink poses a higher risk to humans. We never rule out anything, but in principle, it shouldn't. It should definitely not increase transmission. I don't see any good reason why it would make the virus more severe, he said. For now, emphasis on for now, Hodcroft agrees with Koopmans. It's almost never the case that it's such a simple story of one mutation and all your vaccines stop working. Well, I don't really think that's the concern here. I think the concern is that there's the potential for this thing to jump back and forth from species to humans so quickly, and obviously there has been some mutation that's occurred, so it has been mutating rather quickly. Now, viruses tend to mutate towards being less lethal because a virus doesn't want to kill a host. It's just like how human beings, we don't want to destroy our planet even though, we might be doing so. So we still don't want to do that because we recognize that if we destroy it, then we destroy ourselves, okay? If you're on an island and you cut down all the coconut trees, you're going to die, okay? And so the same thing with a virus, it doesn't want to kill the host. So naturally, it learns to be more transmissive, and typically the traits that make it more transmissive also make it less lethal, because if you keep killing people, then you can't transmit to the next person. Okay, so we know that viruses, they don't want to kill us. They actually just want to symbiotically leech off of us. Now, here's the important part. But this is a different situation, he said. It's not a virus unknown to humans that has jumped from an animal species. In this case, it's a virus that is already adapted to spreading among people, jumped to minks, and is now occasionally jumping back. So this isn't just your run-of-the-mill virus that, goes into the human population and stays there and doesn't bounce back and forth. I mean, think about that. It went from bats to humans to minks back to humans. So this thing is just jumping in and out of different species, and it's going to pick up some trait in some species which may make it more lethal to us. I guess that's the idea. None of us expected, I don't think anybody expected, quarantine to take on the definition that it has in the COVID era. Prior to this, I think many of us would have suspected that quarantine was something which would be limited to places where there were, known infected people, but within reason, never shutting a whole society down. I don't think that was ever depicted in any apocalyptic movie that I ever seen. Even the movie, what was it called, Contagion? They didn't even have a lockdown in that show. Anyways, I thought this was something that I should bring to your attention because it's not getting a lot of media attention right now, and I think it's fairly significant. I think it's saying a lot, because what I've noticed throughout this whole pandemic is that obviously we're not always getting the straight information, and unfortunately the inconsistent information and the contradictory information that we've been getting from the media is what's breeding all of these nutty theories about what's going on. So, I mean, they can talk about, how there's all these silly theories out there about what's happening, but that's in part due to the fact that people aren't getting the straight scoop. That from the start, we haven't gotten the straight scoop. Whether it was, right from the get-go, when some people were saying it was no big deal, it was going to go away right away, to the whole, masks are not effective, to now promoting the wearing of surgical masks, even though they're not that effective. So there's just a lot of, I don't want to say misinformation, because that's kind of a powerful word, but information which is just not complete. It's just not sufficient. And that is creating these vacuums that, of course, attract alternative theories of what's going on. Okay, alternate theories which are probably pretty fringed out and obviously inaccurate themselves. So I'm just saying, keep an eye on this, and don't be surprised if in the next year or so, this whole pandemic acts as a basis for some new crazy pandemic. Like maybe this whole thing is just a platform for the next real superbug, which is going to be very problematic. Let's hope it doesn't go that way. And like I say, nature tends to move towards a more symbiotic relationship between viruses or parasites and their hosts. But I guess we'll see. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com. Your one-stop shop for premium, high-quality, brand-name products that have been tried and tested by myself and other YouTube gear reviewers. My subscribers save 10% off by using the coupon code SURVIVALPREPPER. All one word in all caps.